Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Excuse me! Taxi!
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby, and joining us now is Joe Lavorgna. He is counselor to Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. And Joe, we're so happy to have you back here on Katz and Cosby. This is Rita, along with John Katsimatidis, also Judge Richard Weinberg, and also New York GOP Chair Ed Cox. And I have to ask you what you think the economic outlook is going to be for this year. We heard a lot in the State of the Union.
We sure did, and thank you very much. It's an all-star cast you've got there. Thank you very much for having me back. The outlook for 26 is great because what we saw when Trump fully assumed office was the last 3 quarters real GDP growth of over 3% at an annualized rate. And that's important because that type of GDP is going to lead to much stronger job numbers, which we started to see in January because the GDP leads the jobs. So I know people are understandably concerned about the labor market. Under Joe Biden, jobs were revised down in the last 2 years of his presidency, almost 2 million workers from what had initially been reported. So the president certainly had to fix things. We're making great progress, and the outlook for 26 is excellent.
Well, that's, how is it the Supreme Court, I guess, decision, how much is that going to affect us? I mean, President Trump has done a phenomenal job. He's bringing in 16, 17, $18 trillion in new business that is, I guess, moving along. But the Supreme Court decision, did it put any obstacles in our way?
It put some obstacles, but one that the president and the administration clearly is prepared for. Had the court unfortunately ruled the way it did, the president put in place 15% across the board tariffs through what's known as Section 122, which lasts 150 days. That could be extended if Congress renews it. But there's also what's known as Section 301 and Section 232, which are other parts of trade law that the president used very effectively right now, because not all the tariffs are IEEPA, as they're known, International Economic Emergency Protection Act, but some of those other statutes were used not now, but also back in 2019, when we negotiated with the Chinese. So there are obstacles, but they're low hurdles to clear. And as we've been telling people, the tariffs have been incredibly successful. They're reindustrializing the manufacturing sector. They're going to lead, as you said, John, to all those investments coming in. And, of course, they're also raising significant revenues, which is important because that's helping lower homeowner costs, which surged under the prior administration. We had mortgage rates this week down below 6%. They were nearly 8% under the prior folks.
And the 10-year Treasury went down, too.
Right. The 10-year Treasury rate went down, and that 10-year Treasury note is that benchmark rate is pulling the mortgage rate down, and that's starting finally, thanks to President Trump, making mortgages more affordable, especially for first-time home buyers, which had been priced out of the market thanks to the prior administration's policies.
Yeah. By the way, the mortgage rates are like amazing right now. I mean, this is such an incredible moment in terms of that. Ed Cox.
Yeah, Joe, the reason that President Trump was elected, particularly the paycheck to paycheck people who are 2/3 of the vote, was that the worst inflation under Biden, the worst inflation since 1980, and it far surpassed wages. So how do you assess the present rate of inflation vis-a-vis how wages are going up.
Right. That's a great point. I mean, give you an example. Under Joe Biden, blue-collar wages fell at about a 4/10 annualized rate, meaning they didn't grow at all in real terms. If you take your wage rate adjusted for your cost of living, they were never positive. Under Trump's first year in office, they're up over 1%, which is a very strong rate. So you see a huge dichotomy between this administration and the last. And as you kind of alluded to, the no tax on tips, overtime, reduced Social Security benefits, auto interest deductibility, these are all for like working class Americans. All these things will, of course, help and lift after tax income. So you'll get a stronger job market, stronger productivity. That will lift your nominal wages, it'll lift your top line. And then as inflation goes down and as taxes are cut, that will lift your after tax real income. So again, that's the reason why we're upbeat on 26.
And a lot of that cuts in after April 15th. Is that right?
Well, right now on the refunds, Ed, we're getting, I believe, last numbers I saw, I think around $100 billion or more was the estimate for what we're going to get in. We've seen really big numbers so far this year, so some of that's already occurring. It's already accruing to the economy, which is why if you look at the Atlanta Fed, they're very closely tracked for their GDP estimates. They're tracking a 3% number for the current quarter, which is pretty solid. I wouldn't be surprised that if that number goes higher because those refunds are likely to accelerate going into April 15th.
Well, let's pray. Let's pray there's no war, and let's pray there's no effects from the war, and let's pray for peace. And thank you so much for coming on this Friday evening. And TGIF, thank God it's Friday.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, John. Pleasure to be with everybody.
Thank you
so
Joe.
much.
Joe.
God
Thank
bless.
you. You too.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.